We're going to move on to the voice to Parliament now. And although it is unlikely, the no vote could, of course, still lose this thing. It is Friday night that we're streaming this show. We don't know yet the result, even though you may be watching after the result is known. But from where we sit, and if you are listening on Saturday or Friday night, the no vote could still lose. We can't get complacent. We've got to get out to vote. Remember, voting is compulsory. So do get out there and do talk to your friends about why it is not a good idea to vote yes. We're going to explore that right now in a little bit more depth with our special guest this week, Professor James Allan from the University of Queensland Law School.
Yep.
Great to have you.
Nice to be back, actually.
Good to have you back. And I might point out that you were one of the first people 6 months ago on this show who predicted that this probably wasn't going to go the way that the government had hoped. And even though we don't know the result now, the polls are certainly indicating that it's not going to go the right way for the government.
It would have to be every pollster in Australia being off by 10 points. So it'd be a bad day for the pollsters. So let's keep our fingers crossed. But as you say, can't get complacent. Get out there. And let's get a big 6 in front of this. I want to see something in the 60s.
Yeah, it would be good to send a message in that sense.
Big message.
That we're not that stupid. And I think I've been quite heartened actually by where Australians have shifted.
Yeah, me too. After lockdown and the pusillanimous way that Australians sort of behaved, it's nice to see a bounce back.
Yeah. Well, if you're watching and listening after Saturday, as I said, you already know the result, but we will have some aftermath analysis on the show next weekend. If you're not subscribed to AEDT TV, you may have missed this. Interviews in depth with not one, but 2 former Prime Ministers with our wonderful Professor David Flint at the Australians for a Constitutional Monarchy conference this week. John Howard told Professor Flint that he has 3 reasons for voting no.
One of them is that I'm very much against categorising citizens. One people, one nation, one destiny, one future. And that's what we should be. I always believed very much in what I called One Australia, that we were united by a common citizenship. We should strive to give people equality of opportunity. We shouldn't divide people according to race. And the first and most serious flaw in this proposition is that we're creating a body to which only a small section of the population can be elected by, in turn, a small section of the population. Now that undermines the principle of a single citizenship.
Mr. Howard says the second reason he'll be voting no is that he worries that whatever's added to the Constitution could be interpreted by a future High Court in a way that wasn't even contemplated. Something we'll be speaking to Professor Allan about in just a moment.
And the third thing that I object to most strongly is that the government has not explained what's involved, what it means. And the first duty of any government, be it Labor or Coalition, that is proposing an amendment to the Constitution, is to tell people openly and frankly what's involved in the amendment. And we're told variously or it's very simple, it's just a humble request, which it's not. And we're also told that we'll give you the detail after you vote for it. Well, that's an odd way of campaigning in my book. I've been involved in politics a few years, and I always took the view that if you ask the people to support something, you should tell them what you're asking them to support, and particularly when it comes to changing our Constitution.
Former Prime Minister John Howard and former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, meanwhile, told Professor Flint that changing the Constitution in this way is simply not a safe thing to do.
Look, we've had quite adventurous courts in recent times, and I naturally, as a, I suppose, legal and constitutional conservative, wish it were otherwise. This is why we should be so careful with changing our Constitution, because in the end, the Constitution is what the High Court says it is, and the High Court has been, I think, to put it at its kindest, very adventurous in recent times when it comes to constitutional interpretation. And that's why the only safe change is minimal change, which is absolutely crystal clear and which preferably has no further potential ramifications. Now, the new Chapter 9, as proposed in the upcoming referendum has gargantuan potential ramifications, and that's why I think it's so problematic and must be opposed.
Professor Allan, this is the point that you made on this very show 6 months ago, that we just don't know where this is going to head as far as how the High Court might interpret this new chapter in the Constitution afterwards, right?
Well, that's true. We have a pretty good idea because in my native Canada, something similar to this happened in 1982, and effectively all of the people pushing for the change assured us that nothing would happen with the judges. And for about 5 years, nothing did happen, and then the judges let rip. Oh. And we have an activist court, as Mr. Abbott said right there, and Mr. Howard. And if you think it's going to get better, you just have to look at our current law schools. We are turning out social justice activists. They're just making stuff up. If you go back to 2020 and look at the Love case, this is without this constitutional change. They were deciding based on things like otherness and spiritual connection to the land, and they just effectively rewrote our Constitution. If you put in a
so the Love case was the case involving the Aboriginal gentlemen who had not
yes.
Never ever lived in Australia.
Well, they lived here, but they weren't citizens.
Right.
So if they'd taken out citizenship. So it's bog standard if someone gets convicted for a moderately serious offence that after their sentence is over and they're not Australians, you send them back to the country in which they have citizenship.
Right. These guys had committed a crime. Yeah. They were going to be sent back to, I think, Papua New Guinea.
One was Papua New Guinea, one was New Zealand.
Okay.
And they both served their sentence.
Right.
And anybody who wasn't Aboriginal would have been gone. And they ran this spiritual connection to the land. It is just flat out making it up. And here's the really painful...
That's our High Court.
That's our High Court, 4-3. And in the majority were 3 coalition appointees. All 3 George Brandis appointees. This is a painful thing to say, but Labour is, from our point of view, Labour is making better appointments to the High Court than the Liberals did. It's just shocking. So you have to be worried even if the Liberals are in power. I know it's hard with today's legal cast. It's hard to find constitutional conservatives, but they don't even try. They don't even try.
On the yes side, we've got they claim 70 constitutional lawyers signing a letter.
Yeah, I know that. Well,
what's that about?
Well, most of them aren't constitutional lawyers.
Right.
And if you'd said how many of those people voted for Tony Abbott, it would be 0.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay. So they've selected us.
When you have a university system where 85 to 90% of people who work in the sort of various parts of the university are left-wing supporters, so Labour if you're lucky, but also Green voters. And we know this from the US because their public donations are public information. Universities are overwhelmingly left. In Britain and the US, it used to be about 6-4 for the left wing. Now it's 9-1. There are whole departments that have absolutely no conservatives at all. And in law, I think I work at the most conservative law school in Australia, that's UQ. And we might have 15 to 18% who vote coalition, maybe. There wouldn't be another law school, and there'd be whole law schools where you're looking at a quiet tax lawyer who doesn't say anything.